a distinguished panel to kick us off. We're calling it The Path of the Equestrian Athlete, and we're talking about interscholastic and intercollegiate pipelines. So many universities promote their agriculture and animal science programs as central to their mission. Graduates go on to leadership roles in animal health, biotech, veterinary medicine, livestock and equine industries, agricultural education, and rural community life. Equestrian student athletes, students who compete in organized horseback riding events under the NCAA rules or other systems, are disproportionately drawn from and return to these sectors, and the universities have long cited this pipeline as proof that it is fulfilling its land grant purpose. Equestrians also matters because of what it teaches, including to students who do not grow up around farms or horses. And as you can imagine, as horse people, working with a 1,200-pound animal demands clear communication, risk assessment, calm decision-making under pressure. So they're learning some great life skills. Organizing practices and competitions, managing travel, and coordinating with coaches and veterinarians and barn managers build skills in logistics, budgeting, leadership, and collaborative problem solving that serve students in every profession, not just agriculture.
I think this is a great opportunity to get this distinguished group, besides myself up here, to make some comments on a very important part of our industry. And that's what I've always loved about the American Horse Council is people always say you're going to the Horse Council conference again mid-year. You know, people from our world, the USEF world, are like, well, you know, what does that do for us? And I said, this is where we actually sit down with everyone who's not in our world, but people from all aspects of the horse industry. Because I was a horse show dad. And as my kids approached college age, I was trying to figure out what are they doing now after they did this for all their junior years. And I got involved with an organization, but I went around door to door. I met with the leaders of all the horse associations out there. The 7 ways are, there's collegiate rodeo, there's collegiate polo, there's collegiate dressage, there's collegiate saddle seat, there's collegiate eventing, and then of course in the hunter jumper and Western combined worlds, there's the IHSA, which has been around since 1967, it's huge, and then newer to the scene is the NCAA equestrian programs.
And the big push that we're making currently with the NCEA is to become a full-time championship status sport within the NCAA. We're currently what they call an emerging sport. Equestrian became an emerging sport in 1998, and what that means is that in 1994, the NCAA and the Office of Civil Rights, Title IX, everybody was trying to figure out a way to get more participation opportunities for women. And so they started this program called Emerging Sports, which would allow new sports for women to start up without really having all the numbers that some of the other sports had, and not being a fully classified championship sport, but they would be countable for the universities so that they could meet Title IX guidelines. The equestrian athletes wanted the same opportunity to compete on campus and have the same resources that football, basketball, soccer, volleyball has. They are regularly a 3.5 or better student. We have a 100% graduation rate. And the thing I've learned so much about them is that they have so much grit and resilience. As a former basketball coach at a very high level, I felt good if I could get my players to clean up their lockers in a dressing room. They never had to sweep the floor. They never had to carry the basketballs. This sport is unique in many ways, but one is what the young ladies are taught. They're taking care of the horses. They're cleaning out the stalls. They're there in the morning. They're exercising the horses they need above and beyond of just their own training and learning how to ride. It's a lifetime sport, and it's something that so many of our young ladies move into the industry and other positions.
I am Roxanne Durant. I am the original founder and the executive director of the IEA, which is the Interscholastic Equestrian Association. I think I'm like the little sister to these guys. So our goal in the IEA, well, we originally started to be a feeder program to the IHSA, and ultimately this little invitational thing grew into what is now the IEA, We have about 15,000 members across the country. We put on 1,000 horse shows a year. And we do, our offerings are for 4th grade all the way up through 12th grade. So we're trying to introduce kids to the industry, to a way to try out showing and competing without the obligation of owning a horse. So if your only way into competition is telling mom and dad, hi, nice to meet you, before you can ride, you gotta buy a horse, or before you can show even, you gotta buy a horse. This is a nice way to stick your toe in the water. We offer 3 disciplines. We started with hunt seat. We then expanded into Western. Both of those were collegiate offerings. So again, trying to be a feeder program into those collegiate offerings was our main goal. And then we have also, in the last few years, also added dressage. So we're trying to be that feeder program for all 3 of those main ring sport type of disciplines. Our main goal is really just to feed riders into our sport and into our system, and hopefully they continue to ride through college. We've just the last couple of years, we've also put our toe in the water of a small adult program. It's been called a pilot program for like 5 years now, but we finally took pilot off the name this year. So we do have a small adult program. It's for riders that are after college level, because we don't want to be competing in any way with what's being offered to riders at the collegiate level. But once they're of the age of post-collegiate, then we do have a draw-based small program for adults too. And again, that idea of just, particularly those kids that maybe have just graduated college but don't have the means yet, they've not secured the job yet where they could really go out and get their own horse and be competing, just keeping them involved in the sport. Like maybe they can do this draw-based thing through us for a couple years, and then they find their way into owning their own horse, getting involved with the other organizations, and really keeping a lifetime of being in this sport.
The intercollegiate is about developing not just horseback riders, but leaders, teaching teamwork. It's so important for these young people to have a place that they can learn that. And the horse industry has usually been an individual sport. It's very interesting to see an open rider who rode at 8 o'clock in the morning with their sleeve rolled up at 4 o'clock, wiping the boots for the walk trot rider who's going in the ring. It's unique, and it's something that he through his concept of having this for every rider, gender regardless. It's just everybody. You don't have to have money. You come, you draw a horse, and you ride that horse, and you work as a team, and everybody's points count for the 8 classes. So that walk trot rider is just as valuable as that open rider. And you see friendships that are made for life come back. And that's what's key. We have to be cognizant of the fact that there's going to be a gap in those years for those riders, but they do come back. And I am proud to say that 90% of my 55-member board are former riders who rode on teams, and they feel the responsibility to come back and give back.
Agritourism and equine tourism blend agriculture, culture, outdoor recreation to create an immersive rural experience that supports local economies and deepens public connection to the land.
I think that it is an amazing way to incorporate a different revenue stream into horse operations. So I wanted to add, oh, there we go. Raise your hand if you remember the moment that you committed to doing something meaningful in the horse industry. You remember that moment? Awesome. A lot of you. I remember that moment too, and it wasn't really anything profound. It was out of sheer stubbornness, me graduating undergrad, a person who had purchased a 6-month-old horse as a sophomore in college because I got a job and I thought I was rich, okay? And so by the time I graduated, he was 2 years old, and I was like, well, now I have to train him, right? So I need to live with him. He has to stay with me. And so in order to do that, again, once I graduated, I figured out I was not rich. I ended up renting a small farm with a small barn and did the next thing that made sense. I'll just start a boarding facility and have some people here offset rent, and it'll be fine. Anyone in here run a boarding facility? You then realized how wrong I was, right? So in a time where reality is asking us to do more with less, we are having to build community around our farm operations because global uncertainty is on the rise. We don't know what's going to happen. We have to make sure we invest into our local communities so that we can have the support for our farm operations. We want to increase the longevity of these businesses. Data is saying that we are entering one of the largest generational shifts of wealth and transfer of land, right? We are trying to have longevity on our farm operations because we are building legacies for our families and for our communities. What I have found is the opportunity for us as farm operators is to really make our value visible. And what I found is that sometimes we're a little too close to it to see all the value that our farms can provide. Value. This is what I like to call the value stack. These are the things that happen on farm operations that you've been doing it your whole life. And you think it's not even that big of a deal. But I promise you, the public does not know, and they are just in awe of what you are able to do and create every day. So it's this environment that you have created. I was talking yesterday about how, honestly, people just want to sit in the barn aisle and eat charcuterie boards with the horses breathing on them, and they'll pay for it. It's an income generating activity that allows people to learn and enjoy a working farm. And one of the beautiful things I love about it is that it can be utilized by any farm size. And you're probably already doing it or know someone who is. Examples of this spectrum. This is Springdale Training Center out of Camden, South Carolina. I've gone there for steeplechase races, and it's a grand old time. We dress up like there's a derby, but they also have this event that happens, I think quarterly, called Biscuits and Breezes. They charge people to come out and watch an activity that's already happened. The horses they're doing the breezes in the morning. And all they bought was biscuits. In the face of rising costs, margins that are screaming at us, and the conversations around labor and land usage, agritourism has the opportunity to help you generate new revenue, help you leverage your current facilities for other activities, and in doing so, your quality of life can improve. It also allows for buffering against economic uncertainty. Did anyone else see an influx of people coming to the farm during the pandemic? Yeah, because when people want to escape, they want to go outside.
It also brings us together, because from 6 feet up and between the ears, horses and horseback riding tourism brings a perspective that bridges cultural divides and builds local business. In 2026, this year, they report 75% of trip revenue stays inside a destination's local community, just like my partner here was saying. And for every $100,000 spent, approximately 2.5 new jobs are created. So when the tide comes in, everyone rides together. Now we go to Mexico, and this one is really wonderful. We've got a ride that connects you with nature on a horseback ride through a monarch butterfly sanctuary. Danus plexippus, if you want to know the Latin name. And the importance of this is that this is with the biosphere preserve. Now, what's the difference between a biosphere and any other kind of preservation is that this works with the human community too. This is about economics and the environment. The butterfly sanctuary is actually when the monarch is coming from Canada down to Mexico. 4 generations of butterflies occurred during that migration. So by the time they get to Mexico, that little baby butterfly had no idea what Canada was about. We still can't explain how they do it, but they do. And preserves like this work with 14 of the identified colonies on the East Coast. They fly into central and southern Mexico. And the biospheres and the sanctuaries help protect at least 8 of those. We're evolving to the next step, and that is in regenerative tourism. We're not just protecting what's there, we're helping it to grow and mature and develop.
Several figures have been circulated regarding the U.S. horse population. The most comprehensive number comes from our economic impact study, the last one done in 2023, that said there's roughly 6.5 million horses in the U.S. Now, the U.S. Department of Agriculture does the National Agricultural Statistics Service, or NASS, counts only horses that are on working farms. And that definition excludes boarding, training, and riding facilities, as well as other operations that fail to generate the minimum $1,000 in sales of equine products, which they define as breeding fees, stud fees, semen, and other. So obviously their subpopulation is much smaller. They say there are 2.6 million horses in the U.S. And last but not least, the American Veterinary Medical Association publishes a report on pets. And while horses are livestock, let me be clear about that, they ask the pet owners questions about all types of animals in their care. And thus, when they publish their report, they say there are 1.9 million horses in the U.S. But now we have a new opportunity through a project that's being done at Colorado State that we're going to hear about today. And I hope I'm not misquoting because I'm doing this off the top of my head, but this is a geospatial study of horse operations and horse populations across the U.S.
Why do equine operations and population data matter? Who could be a better audience than you guys, right? We all know, we've been talking about it, I think from yesterday, that, data matters. We had some other presentations on AI and data also. So knowledge of location, distribution, size, and density of these equine populations are very critical for actually emergency response and planning situations, especially when there are disease outbreaks, for example, including infectious anemia, pyroplasmosis, whatnot, vascular stomatitis, those kind of diseases. And not only that, but also it helps the government have response planning in place when they know that there are multiple populations in an area. Also, not only the populations, but also at the operation level, as well as the number of horses, have an estimate, then they can actually plan it. But we have taken a two-pronged approach. The left one being we call it Geo-AI modeling, which considers remote sensing as well as machine learning, especially deep learning tools. Whereas the right side one is the right side, I don't know if this works, but yeah, right side one is the one which considers the statistical approaches. And what we're going to do is take both approaches, and the statistical approaches is mostly concentrating on the underrepresented population. We will take outputs from both the modeling techniques and then compile it together and integrate them to be able to produce a final data set that would be sitting with the USDA for any emergency response planning. So the way the modeling would go is with remote sensing and deep learning is all these 5 stages. First is through the NAP imagery, we would look at the satellite imagery, consider that and look at the structures of the equine operations. For example, the barns or even the corrals, which we have not considered corrals based on our SMEs, but there are many other structures that I will be going through. And once you look at the structures and train the model using the deep learning technique and using the ArcGIS toolbox from Esri, we locate the structures and then aggregate it at the operation level.
Use the GeoAI modeling for trying to guess or trying to identify where operations are in a few counties. These counties were selected based on the density and that they represent a higher proportion of number of operations and number of horses. But we want to have a national coverage. So the rest of the country, the remaining space that we are not using the GI, we are going to try to use, actually we did already, use the mathematical models to help us understand the distribution of the operations and the population over there. In, let's see an example. Okay, come on. Yeah. So it's like a beehive because our units are hexagons. Why are hexagons? Because they're close to a circle, but it doesn't miss any part. So we cover is like a beehive, and each color or each density of the color, I mean the clear, the whites and yellows represent lower probability, and the reds, oranges, and purples represent higher probability of the presence of equine operations. No, a national data set that we can rely on. There's not one source of information, but we have tried to use 2 different approaches, complementary, to realize the number of operations and number of horses that there are in the US. We obtain exact locations based in GeoAI and approximate locations based on statistical models. The results, of course, will support preparedness, response, and awareness, but this is just the initial step. This is a foundational work that have demonstrated feasibility of these methods. The next steps are validation, refinement, include some dynamics because populations are not static. And we would like to see this type of information used in the real world and see how this information can help and how we can measure effectiveness and efficiency improve because of the use of this type of information. We need more collaboration with the industry, with the animal health, emergency management, and the rest of the equine community to continue